make your day richer than it was before. Got some good times knocking upon your front door. It's the Richard Wilmore Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Richard Wilmore.
Thank you. I'll have a sip right now out of this beautiful mug.
Thank you. I made them myself. I didn't. We were talking before we started filming, and you were telling a story of your mother's pets.
Yes.
And so I was like, wait, stop this, because people need to hear about when a parent has a pet gazelle. I feel like that needs to be told.
Well, yes. Well, we were talking about our love of cats and the very distinctive personalities that they have. And I was mentioning that I had lost my baby Edward just over the summer, and I was loving hearing your stories about your cats. And then you asked about growing up with animals. Well, I did, but it's because my mother was such an animal lover, and she grew up loving them, and she grew up in a almost like extreme animal experience for her because she was an oil brat. Her father worked for the Arabian American Oil Company in Saudi Arabia, and she moved over there when she was 5 years old. And Aramco had these little American-style compounds that were kind of like an American subdivision would be, with pretty middle American houses and neat yards and everything. It was to be as if you were, because the Americans were being transplanted into the desert to work for this oil company. Well, my grandfather was in a pretty high up executive position, and one of the things he was able to do is indulge my mother's love of animals. They had a little area right outside the compound called the Hobby Farm, and it's where lots of Aramco kids and adults could ride horses and do all kinds of outdoor activities. Well, Mom they gave her a horse when she was 12, and that horse had a baby, and so my mother had two Arabian horses going at once. But in all the lead up to that and the years after, until she was out of high school, she was wonderful about adopting stray animals from the desert. So she had a pet gazelle, she had a pet oryx, she had one of those huge desert lizards, the kind where you put a pencil into its mouth that snaps. It could break your hand. Mm-hmm. It could snap your finger in half. And she had birds. She had a pet hen that they never killed. Her name was Clarabelle. So she ran around, and she actually sat in Mom's lap once and laid an egg. And so Mom had these incredible stories to share about nursing wounded animals back to life, and her beautiful cat on top of it all, Gregor. So you look at the wide range she had, and she absolutely adored animals. So when we were growing up, she always made sure we had pets. So we always had dogs, cats, fish, birds. And we were a military family, and we moved every year or two. And those animals were part of the family, and they always came with us.
Yeah, I grew up with pets. My parents had a dog before they had kids, and he was 18, I think, when he died, and I was in, 5th or 6th grade, they're always part of the family. My dad also always wanted to live on a farm, but my mom did not. So we had farm animals, but never at the same time. So we had chickens, we had pigs, we had turkeys, but my mom was like, you get one at a time, and when those are gone, then we can talk about something else. But he probably would have had a gazelle if my mom would have let him. How do you coax a gazelle to be your pet? Do you know?
No, I don't know, and unfortunately my mom's no longer around to be able to tell me. I just remember that nothing she told me about her years in Saudi Arabia struck me as shocking or strange. It was just my mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. That's so
But
crazy.
she instilled a love of animals in my brother, my sister, and me. And my father loved animals too. I'm loving your little animal here.
She is an attention whore.
Look at her.
So that's yeah.
You're
She's
very
10 and her name is Kyoko, and she.
I think Kyoko is beautiful. Look how beautiful and dark you are.
Yeah, no, but let's not drink the water, shall we? You've been in the entertainment industry for how many years?
We're coming up on 30.
30.
Richard. Yeah, this coming February will be my 30th anniversary in the business.
Have you ever done an interview in a one-bedroom apartment with your?
I can't say that I have, but you know, I love it. I love your set here. I think it's fantastic.
What's the? Do you have any What's the weirdest place you've ever performed, or? Why don't you come up here? Come up here.
You want to come sit with
You
me?
just can't sit here and drink the water and play in there. She loves playing in water.
Well, of course she does. Well, here, you want to come see me? Come on. Oh, well, you're very vocal.
Just
She may want to perform with me sometime. She's got a great voice.
you can, yeah, she can audition and you can take her on the road with you if you'd like.
Well, you were asking about the strangest place to perform. I've always told people I'll perform anywhere, you know, and whether you pay me or not, because I guess there's anyone who's in the music business or in any kind of performing arts is probably a ham at heart somehow. I'm trying to think. I got my start singing at Dick's Last Resort on the Riverwalk, which is no longer there, but that was burgers and booze, which has been a continuing theme in my career. There's
one
always
way or
food
another,
and liquor of
yes.
some sort, you know. I've sung as a guest a couple of times on cruise ships. I've sung on balconies overlooking swimming pools. I think I may have even sung once in a swimming pool, but that memory's a little blurry.
I'm guessing that was more of the booze part than
It
food part.
was just, I think, some kind of a frolic.
Uh-huh.
But my goodness, as far as performance venues, I've been in almost every situation you can imagine, and I think it doesn't have to be Carnegie Hall. It can be Chris Madrid's, which I also have sung at before. But
Well, I'm glad I could be your first apartment.
yes, I think the only time I ever sang in an apartment was during some other festive activities in the 1980s, but that was when I was much younger.
Something else. Yes.
But anyway, it's definitely the first time I've been on a show that's broadcast from an apartment, and I think it's a fantastic concept, actually.
Well, I think it's fun. People are usually surprised that it's my living room. Like they're like, I saw videos. It doesn't look like your basement or your living room. I'm like, oh, I mean that's kind of the point.
I mean,
but also
with the
kind of-
fabulous skyline backdrop and all of these beautiful tchotchkes and
just try to distract from the fact that it's actually a living room. Look everywhere else.
May I say this for you too, or say this to you, it's a beautifully neat and well-ordered living room.
Well,
Everything
thank you.
is in place. It's very nice.
Well, yes, I don't like messes, and yes, this is true.
Because we all know talk shows are messy enough.
Right.
Without being-
We might throw this chair later. It could get messy here. You don't know what's about to happen. Depends what subject I bring up. Where have you performed? Where have you? I mean, you've been all over.
Yes. In town, you mean, or
no,
elsewhere?
outside of town.
Well, gosh, in one of my promotional kits, I state that I've headlined as far north as Alaska and as far south as Mexico City, and it's the truth. But I've performed primarily in Texas and primarily in San Antonio, but I have done a lot of performing in Austin over the years. I've performed in Dallas a couple of times. Many different, but when I talk about these places, either they were nightclubs or conventions at big hotels or wedding receptions, baptisms, I performed at a bar mitzvah once here in San Antonio, and I sang in Yiddish. I don't know Yiddish, but I memorized some
Wow.
Yiddish so I could do the songs. I've performed in restaurants, bars, people's homes, on patios, in driveways, in shopping parking lots,
Wherever.
and live in radio stations and on TV. And just about anywhere that someone will let me sing.
I understand that. I won't sing for anybody, but yes. What's your favorite part about performing?
I really love the fact that performance is a form of communication. So what I really love is the performing live. I find it much more difficult to, say, be in a recording studio working on an album. But not that I don't enjoy that, but it's a completely different vibe than singing to people live. And so I love the eye contact. I like being right in front of folks. So that the interaction with an audience is what I find really wonderful and rewarding about performing, about singing and working with a live band. I don't do karaoke. I'm not into singing with tracks unless it's absolutely necessary. And the only tracks I'll use are the ones my producer makes for me that feature our musicians. I don't buy karaoke tracks, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. There may be people who really love that, but for me it's about the spontaneity and the actual living in the moment of the singing.
That's why I'm trying to do Facebook Lives, because I love, well, first of all, I don't like editing myself. I don't want to sit in front of a computer and watch myself. But I think there's something about being live and being able to interact with people that brings something so special to
Well,
it.
I totally agree with you. And I feel the same way. So this is a perfect setting.
We'll just be here every day, you and I, hanging out. You perform at Sam's quite a bit.
Yes, I do. I have an arrangement there these days where I'm there 3 times a year. And what I typically do is do a springtime performance, probably around May or so. Then I do a birthday show every August. I call it my swing and birthday bash. That's a tradition that goes back to when I first started performing. And then I do a Christmas spectacular.
I love Christmas. I haven't been able to come to one of them yet, so I want to come.
Yes, I want you there. You'll always be my guest. Just let me know, and you can even bring a date.
I want to be there for the Christmas one.
Okay.
As long as I can sing. I can sing in the not on stage. I don't mean that. I mean in the audience. I can belt it out, right?
Oh, there's only room for one.
For one. Everyone else is silent. You demand that everyone's silent and just
No,
listen.
I'm kidding. But in fact, we're still negotiating which day, but it should be the week of Christmas, right around the 20th or so.
How has music and the entertainment industry changed since you started?
The digital revolution,
Yeah.
for sure, in terms of recording, even in terms of performing with the kinds of sound equipment that are available.
I just read today that record sales are going to surpass CD sales.
Yes,
for
I
the
heard
first
that.
time in 30-some years.
Yes, I heard that too. And I am a dedicated vinyl collector, and I have 3 record players, 2 vintage from the 50s, and then 1 modern turntable in my home. And I've always loved records. And I was just talking about this with Barry Brake, who is he's produced my last 2 albums, and he's my pianist, and he writes arrangements for me. I told him that what I want to do is I want to re-release the 5 albums I've already done on LP. And then the newest, whatever the newest recording will be, and we're experimenting with some ideas right now, that I would release it in CD format as well as LP format. And a lot of the production houses now are offering you packages where you could do 100 vinyl and 1,000 CDs or whatever you want. I think it's evident from the news. There's a strong market for it.
Yeah.
And so I want to take advantage of that. But I would have wanted to produce vinyl anyway because I love how it looks. I love how it sounds. I like the large format that is there for the cover art and for the liner notes. And then, I'm from a generation that records were it. And then cassette tapes and the unfortunate 8-track tapes for a while. I still have some of those in storage.
Wow.
Yeah. including Elvis's greatest hits.
On A-Track?
On A-Track.
Wow.
I have a feeling now if I were to try to sell those on eBay or something that they might fetch a pretty penny.
Maybe we should start a live auction right now, and people who are watching can just bid, and then we'll contact them after.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
Sure, why not?
Do they even have 8-track players anymore? I'm sure they probably have places that fix them.
We'll find one. If they bid high enough, we'll find one for them. Maybe.
You know, I recently bought a cassette player recorder on Amazon, just a little, like the one I used to have when I was a kid, because I used to love to pretend I was a radio host when I would do radio shows. Well, it never even occurred to me that cassettes would still be viable, and they're making somewhat of a comeback as well. I have boxes and boxes and garbage bags full of cassette tapes stored in my storage unit that I thought I would never be able to play again. And I want to do some digging through that and start playing some on that little tape.
I feel like that would be a fun thing to film. Like going through and seeing all of those, because you probably have a bunch of stuff you don't even remember you have.
Oh, I'm sure of it, because we used to make our own mixes. You know, what I would do is I collected a lot of 45s, and I still have hundreds of those. But I had this really great stereo that my mom and dad gave me for Easter one year, and it was everything. It was records, 8-track, dual cassette, and AM/FM radio, all in one unit. So I could record records on cassette or 8-track. I could record 8-track to cassette. I could do cassette to 8-track. It was unbelievable, and I wish I still had that, because you know, when all that stuff started kind of going out of style, I threw it away, which is so stupid to think that I threw it away.
Well, because you think like I'm not gonna why would you keep it? You know, there's something cool and new. I'm not gonna use that again. Why like?
And I'll tell you, it took me a long time to even really understand CDs. I didn't have a CD player for a long time. My first album was released as a cassette only, $8. And then the second album was cassette and CD, which was considered kind of daring and new.
Wow.
And then after that, it was just CDs. But anyhow, I love the idea that vinyl is making a comeback. Vinyl has a certain warm, earthier sound than pristine digital. Pristine digital is fantastic. I'm not against that at all. Here we are, we're embracing, you know, modern technology. But there's just something about that sound. And when it comes to my old records, when I play them back, scratches, pops, and all, it's a trip down memory lane for me. It's totally nostalgia.
That's not as cool as when you're listening to a CD and it starts skipping. You're not like, oh, nostalgia.
No, that's
like,
just refuse.
Yeah, that's just annoying. Is what that is. Are your albums available on iTunes and things?
Yes, they are. They're the earliest ones are not.
Okay.
On purpose. That's by design. I don't want anyone to hear them. I mean, I had wonderful friends who bought them and fans who bought them, but I don't like to hear I just don't think they're of the quality to be offered. But my last 3 albums are, and they're on Apple iTunes. They're at cdbaby.com, which is my record store, you know, independent artist record store online. Just about any major download site, and I'm on Spotify. And so every now and then I hear myself somewhere, and then of course cuts are on different programmable sites, and I have several tracks on Music Choice on cable.
Do you listen to yourself?
Rarely. You can ask anyone I've ever recorded with. When it's playback time in the studio, I cringe. I can't stand sometimes to hear myself, because I'll suddenly realize that's how I sound to other people, and I'm thinking, why on earth why my recordings are coming to hear me? But every now and then, it's funny you should ask that question, because I'd say about 6 months ago, just on a lark one day when I was doing housework at home on a Saturday, I went to iTunes and downloaded my 3 albums onto my phone and played them through Bluetooth through the speakers. And you know what? I thought, wow, they sound pretty good. I just hadn't listened since they've been released. not really. One of them was from 2007. I hadn't listened to it, and so when I heard it back, I thought not bad, you know, and it was good production quality, and it made me remember. I was instantly transported to when I recorded it and who I was with in the studio and everything. So it's not a frequent occurrence, but every now and then I do. And sometimes you can't help it. You're on a radio show and they're playing you. You're the bumper music or something, which I'm happy if anyone wants to listen to me. It's a wonderful feeling. I just get a little embarrassed hearing myself back. And I'd be willing to bet there are other musicians and recording artists you talk to who feel the same way. Because you can always find a better way to have sung that note or to play that chord or whatever it is.
Yeah. Who do you listen to?
I listen to a wide array of
I
artists.
figured that was going to be the answer.
Well, I really do. They're not all jazz artists either, but and I think I have some friends who think I need to expand my horizons a little further because I listen to so many dead artists and you know, maybe very aging artists who haven't really recorded in a long time. But that's the whole point of preserving things by recording, is to preserve wonderful performances and wonderful artists, no matter whether they're alive or not. And then, of course, there are some modern day, very much alive artists that I like. So I've never pigeonholed myself as to what I listen to. And I think you can pick up, no matter what genre you're in, I think you can pick up a little something from everyone. You know, if it's soul or funk or rock and roll or disco or traditional jazz or Dixieland jazz or blues, country western.
Do you get to go see live music yourself ever?
Not as much as I'd like to because I'm usually working.
Yeah.
And then on the nights I'm not working, I'm wanting to just
Not do anything.
chill out.
Yeah.
But what I can, I do. And I'm looking forward to doing such a thing soon when I go back to do a show in New York in November. Whenever I go, I always make a point of seeing who's playing it with the Blue Note, and I go there and I go to Birdland to hear some good live jazz. And you know, here in town, I'm not following the live music scene as closely as I once did, just because of time restraints or constraints. Not any other reason. I do love being in an audience though and watching someone make their magic on stage, and just it's really fun to sometimes just be the audience and not have to be on stage at all. And I admire anyone, no matter what style they do, to have the wherewithal to get out there and sing from the heart, perform from the heart, and do what they love. There's nothing more fun than watching someone do what they love.
I love going to live music. I will go to concerts that I don't even know who they are. Just I can't imagine standing up there and having 40,000 people screaming at you. Like,
You
well,
need to try it.
All right.
40,000 is
You know what
just
I mean?
that's just an off night.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's the average of the people watching right now, right? Do you remember who the first, like, what the first concert you went to was?
Yes, I do. The first concert for a major star that I went to was the Beach Boys.
Oh.
And that was in 1979 at the now defunct Convention Center Arena in downtown San Antonio. I was a freshman at St. Mary's University. I had just moved here from Alaska, and in Alaska there were not that many big concerts to go to, at least not in that time period. So when I had the chance to get a ticket to go see the Beach Boys, and I had always been a fan of the Beach Boys anyway as a boy, I was thrilled, and that was a great show. And that they sounded better than on their recordings. They were so wonderful, their harmonies and all the instruments, and then the way they interacted with the audience. They were just having, it was like a giant beach party. They were having a wonderful time. So that was the first one I went to, and I remember just being blown away by it.
That's awesome. What do you have coming up? I know you have other things coming up.
Well, let's see. Not in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
September 21st, I'll be at Jazz Alive, which is our, the city's, it's the city's festival in terms of it being in San Antonio, but it's put on by the San Antonio Parks Foundation. And they've hired me to be one of the main stage headliners this year. I go on, I think, at 4 o'clock on Saturday the 21st. It's in Travis Park downtown. Have you ever been?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's they've got a wonderful lineup of local and regional artists during the day, and then there's going to be a big national star that night, Diane Reeves, who is just like, I don't know how many Grammys she's won. She's a fantastic jazz vocalist. So I'm going to be part of that lineup, which I'm very happy about. It's open and free to the public. It's take Uber, I would suggest, since it's hard to park downtown. But that'll be a wonderful time for everybody. And then I will go to New York Thanksgiving weekend to sing at the Triad Theater, which is on the Upper West Side. My first time to be there. I've been up there several times to perform at the Metropolitan Room. This will now be at the Triad Theater, and I'm taking Barry Brake with me on piano. I will do a Christmas show, as I said, at Sam's sometime in December, around mid-December, and I will be doing my an annual performance I do for a Christmas charity program on KTSA radio on December 10th, and it's at Fiesta, Texas, and it's called Rapping with Jack, and it's hosted by Jack McCarty. He's a talk show host. But this program is for volunteers. Hundreds and hundreds of volunteers come to wrap presents for needy families through the Family Service Association. And my band and I come and do jazz versions of Christmas classics every year. It's broadcast live on the radio, plus there's all those people there that you're performing for while they work. Those are the set things. There'll be some private gigs as well in people's homes, and I'm not sure yet where New Year's Eve will be. The last couple of years it was at the San Antonio Country Club, but my phone isn't ringing off the wall yet for New Year's Eve, so we shall see.
It will now.
hopefully
Yes.
so. But I mean, I'm purposely right now taking a hiatus from working every weekend. After my mom died a couple of years ago, I was really struck by the feeling that I had spent years and years working every Friday and Saturday night, and many times skipping family functions because I had to work. And I decided after my mother died that life's too short to be doing that all the time. And it isn't that I love singing as much as ever, if not more than ever. I just am not interested in slaving away every weekend at this stage. I may go back to a quasi weekend schedule at some time or another, but I'm purposely having a little more downtime between performances and just doing more concert settings or special event settings, and enjoying it very much.
What was I going to ask? I had a question in my head, and then
I talked too long.
No, and then I started like, I really want to ask him about that, and then I totally just blanked on it. What was it? Nobody knows.
How do I stay so young looking?
Yes. Oh, yes. Kind of, yes. Young was the trigger word there.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to people who want to start and who are maybe struggling, and it's hard when you aren't booking gigs, or you're not, and you're like, am I good enough to do this, or what's your advice for that?
Well, everyone's journey in the music business is a little different, but a couple of things are I think everyone needs to think about. First of all, you need to really work at your art and your craft. You need to be working at it, rehearsing it, and trying to become better at what you do, whether you play guitar, play piano, or sing, or act, whatever you want to do. In my case, I didn't have any vocal training other than singing in the choir in Catholic school, and I wouldn't count that as vocal training. And in fact, my voice changed so early that I was kind of nixed out of certain choral performances because my voice was too low. The boys were still sopranos, and the girls were, sopranos are tenors, and the girls sopranos and altos. And I was like this, trying to. So I had a hang up about my voice for years, thinking it was because I sounded bad, and it was really just because my voice changed a little sooner than some of the other boys. But other than that, I didn't really have any training. So I taught myself by singing to records, literally, day in, day out, whenever I thought nobody else was listening, because I was very shy about it. But the bottom line is find a way to practice, whether you're singing along to something or you're actually a musician and know how to play, or you have an accompanist if you're a singer. So that's very important. Going out to hear live music is hugely crucial. You need to go out and watch what other people are doing. And it doesn't matter what genre it is, you can pick up something from it about the way they interact, or the way what their intonation is, or how they react, how they interact with the musicians on stage, or whatever they're doing. You need to study those. And you also really need to identify and study artists in your genre, artists that you admire, because you can pick up something on all of that as well. It's all learning, all of it's learning. If possible, go to jam sessions. I did a lot of that early on. I would go week after week after week to the Boardwalk Bistro, which was where the big jazz jam session by Small World was hosted, every Monday for years and years. I'm not exaggerating, like 20 years. And so even after I became more established in the business, I went every week, and I hung out with other musicians. I watched what other singers were doing. I listened for material that I might want to perform. If a lot of it has to do with networking, and a lot of it has to do with just kind of living your passion in any way that you can. So you're watching it, you're listening to it, you're reading it, you're talking to other people in the business and finding out how they got started and what they would recommend. And then trying to find a way to get yourself booked somewhere, and don't be afraid to ask. I went around with a cassette demo up and down St. Mary's Street, where we were talking about St. Mary's Street earlier. One of my first gigs was at Joey's. He didn't know who I was. Knock, knock. I'd like to sing. Here's how we sound. Okay. How'd you like to do my second anniversary show? Have you been to Joey's on St. Mary's? It's still there. I played there. I played at Chris Madrid's. I played at. I would throw myself a birthday party to make it a show so people would come. Tycoon Flats. I did that for years there. My point is, you can, especially now with the incredible digital breakthroughs we've had, you could set up right here in your living room and do a concert, and it'd be fantastic.
There is a band that does that. They call it the living room sessions, and once a quarter they find a house and they do a full concert.
I think that's fantastic.
And they bring in other bands, and
Is that
the Sofa Series. That's what it's called.
Is that here?
Yeah.
Who hosts that?
Jed Craddock is the main.
I haven't heard of his, but I did one like that. They call them house concerts too, or parlor concerts. I did one several years ago at a man's house. He was very wealthy, and I think may have been a doctor of some sort, but he also had a passion for playing the drums, and was quite good at it. And I remember he put together what he thought were his dream, a set of dream musicians to come in, and we played right in the foyer of his house, and people paid a good price ticket, and it all went to charity, and we had a great time. But the point is, if no one's booking you, I didn't have internet when I started. I started in 1990, so that was pre-internet. With internet, if no one will book you, then book yourself. Like you've done with your talk show.
Yeah.
I think there's always been the saying, where there's a will, there's a way. But I absolutely believe that in this day and age, it's actually more possible, because you can literally, you can promote yourself on Facebook that you're going to have a special.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great TV special.
Yeah.
And it's on the patio of your apartment complex, or wherever you want it to be.
That's what I did my show in Milwaukee, and that's what I named it, Richard Karlinski's Primetime Special. It was literally, I think it was 2 episodes, that's all they wanted me for, and I was like, yeah, but it's going to be a special. This is going to be a thing.
Well, that's what I like about, I think a lot of people can learn from your example. When we met recently, and you described to me what you do, I admire it greatly. Here it is. You don't have a studio, you don't have a contract with anybody, and you were like, well, that's not going to stop me from pursuing my dream of being a talk show host. You wanted to be one, so you made it come true.
So I was one. Yeah.
I think it's beautiful, and I feel like you and I have a very similar approach to things. No one was beating down my door to play Carnegie Hall, and while I can't get into Carnegie Hall, I can make my own Carnegie Hall. And so I'm kind of proud of the fact that I've been doing that my entire career. And then hopefully you get to a stage where people really want you, and I've been very fortunate. There are people who like to book me and they enjoy me. But that's probably the number one lesson for answering that question you had about giving advice to people, is take the bull by the horns and use today's technology to make your dream happen, and you'll be surprised. I've only done one streaming concert, and that was in New York 3 years ago. And it was something I had to pay extra for, but got a great deal on at the Metropolitan Room. And it was so slickly done by these people. I was amazed at how many people tuned into it from all over the world. I had someone typing commentary from Macedonia. So I have a fan in Macedonia.
Of course.
Well, it turned out later that it turned out to be a man who had engineered one of my albums when I didn't know he was living in Macedonia at the time. But he somehow found out about it and tuned in. And then, of course, I was given that entire performance. I have it, I have the digital remains of it, to be able to use for marketing purposes. But I never saw a camera. There were 8 or 10 of them in that room, in the ceiling and looking up, and in the audience and behind the audience and behind me. So when I saw the playback, it was like watching a PBS special. I couldn't believe it. Now I'm sure it's an expensive setup, but the cameras must have been very small, and they must have been like little GoPro. Is that what they're called?
The GoPro?
GoPro cameras in places, because I literally never saw them. But it looks like it was all set up in this giant TV studio, and
So cool.
like some star walked out, onto the stage. So I would say take full advantage of your whole toolkit, which can be from the digital abilities we have today, the relatively inexpensive way these things can be done, and studying what you love, watching what other people do, the kind of music you love, and just not being afraid. And I know what it's like to be afraid, and I know how it can make you feel a little embarrassed. I had the thing that I felt was working against me early in my career was that I was gay. I don't think that anymore. I realize now that was my own burden I was putting on myself. But I was afraid to be maybe as expressive and, daring as I could have been. Although I feel I was daring, I feel I was expressive, I went after what I wanted. But if I had the toolkit of the digital and maybe a little less fear, maybe I would have taken a few other chances earlier in my career that might have had me living in New York or something. But I'm not complaining. San Antonio is a fantastic home. San Antonio has been unbelievably generous to me. And no matter what happens in the future with music, this will always be home base, always. So, I don't know, that's probably a really long answer.
That's a perfect answer. Next week is my 2-year anniversary in San Antonio.
Congratulations.
I love it, yeah.
And how many episodes of your show have you had?
You are episode 85. Yeah. So about 100 interviews, because I used to do multiple interviews in an episode.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, 85.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I really see things expanding in your future for you.
Fingers crossed.
You really have great talent. Your whole the whole premise of this is just so refreshing. It really is.
I feel like, well, we should stop now because now we're talking about me and that's pointless. So I'm going to say, Kevin, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You're the best. Go look him up and follow him around town and go see him live. Bye, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Bye. Can you press stop?